Captain Dynamo. If this is the hero we deserve, we need to live better. Next on the Atari ST Show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Atari ST Show. I'm your good buddy, your good pal, Amigo Aaron, joined by everyone's favorite character, that wacky fellow we call the Brent.
Hey, everybody.
You don't sound that wacky this morning, the Brent.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I'm just waiting for the cat to jump up here.
Oh,
because I know it's going to happen.
Well, the cat is wacky. The cat's going to do his own personal platforming today. Hey, everybody. Again, we're back at the Atari ST Show, and this week, we're going to take a look at an unusual title that was selected by the Game Selection Committee. It's Captain Dynamo. But before we get to that, Brent, I was pondering, as I will do when we do these sorts of things, that whenever you have, like, fictional characters that have a military rank, it's almost always like Captain America, Captain Planet, Captain Marvel, all these different captains. Like, what's the scoop? Why do you think captain is the preferred rank? Because why not admiral? Why not president or general? You don't hardly ever get those. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you've had a few that weren't of the captain variety. A couple majors in there.
Like who?
Major Havoc. Who is
that?
Who's the? No, I guess. Was it Captain Atom or was it
Captain Atom? That's another one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
You see my point. Yeah, I wonder why
Sergeant
that is.
Fury.
Sergeant
now, of course, Slaughter.
The chat's loading up with their various things. Sergeant Fury, Sergeant Rock, Judge Dredd. Is Judge a military rank? I don't think it is. But now one of the things about the hero of today's game is that he's an old guy. He's an old, like, retired guy. Can you think? Do you have any other favorite old retired heroes that came back to save the day?
No.
Well, I'll name one off the top of my head, and he's another captain, Captain America. He's, by the time he actually gets revived in Avengers, he's been around since the World War II.
But he wasn't retired.
Oh, he was. Yeah, but he was old. He's ancient guy. He was frozen in an iceberg.
Age, that doesn't count.
Oh yeah, I'm counting that one right there. That's exactly. Someone mentioned in the chat. Oh, it was Happy General Thunderbolt Ross. I wouldn't call him a hero, but he was the guy that perpetually had to fight the Hulk. That's a sad job. I don't know what would you rather do, fight the Hulk or have to write that book? That's one of those books I've always thought would be difficult to write. Hulk and Superman, like, what are you going to do? He's not going to be stopping a mugging. You know what I'm saying? And Hulk would even be harder because at least Superman's a man. I mean, Hulk, when he becomes Banner, like, no one cares about him at all. All the fun stuff happens.
Master Splinter has to come and save the day every once in a while.
Is he anciently old? Is that the rat?
Yeah.
I never got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It never worked for me. The concept is too wacky.
Too old.
No, they were. What do you mean? I was right in their wheelhouse. But yeah,
no, you weren't.
See, a lot of people don't know this. It's funny. I think I just talked about this a while back, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were around for a long time in comic form, and their comics were black and white comics. They were around forever. Like when I was in college, they were around. So it's not like suddenly they just appeared. I mean, think about it. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game is old. That Konami game. It is. I'm just saying.
No, I know. But you were like, I'm in college. It's like, yeah, that wasn't the age demographic they were going for.
What do you mean? It was exactly who they were aimed at. College. Those books weren't written for kids. Here's something else you probably didn't know. There was a Teenage Mutant Ninja, help me out here, TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. There was a role-playing game years and years and years before anyone had heard of these guys. They had their own role-playing game. And I remember rolling up this guy. He was like a hog man. That was my guy. And I remember rolling them up and thinking to myself, man, this is stupid. Well, we played the game one time, and we never played it again.
So you basically rolled up Rocksteady.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't
Or-
read the comic. So.
Or Bebop. I can't remember which is which. One's a
I
rhino,
mean,
one's a
who's the dupe you fight in the very first fight on the video game? I guess he was sort of like that,
Yeah,
with the mohawk.
That's the debate I'm having. I don't know if that's Rocksteady or Bebop.
It doesn't matter. They're all the same. All those movies are horrible, by the way. I hate those guys. I always thought the concept was dumb. So, but you know what isn't dumb, Brent?
Me?
Today's
You're right.
game. Today's game.
I thought you asked the question and then answered it. You know who isn't dumb? Brent.
No, oh yeah. Listen, for the past half hour, I have not been saying that, but I'm sure you're gonna have a concise and well thought out review as we take a look at this week's game. It's Captain Dynamo. Oh man, Captain Dynamo, the Brent. This was the one that was picked
Probably
this
not
week.
the best splash screen to just set on.
Well, hey, that's the way it is. That's the music screen, man. What did you think about the perpetual tunage in Captain Dynamo?
Yeah, the soundtrack in this is by far its best quality.
I have a feeling for some reason it doesn't seem like you're too keen on the old Dynamo here, Brent. Let's get into the particulars here.
You'd be quite mistaken.
Oh, okay.
This is a adequate platform that probably could have done so much more.
Just gonna sum up your whole thoughts on it right here at the very opening, eh?
The people need to know.
So, again, Captain Dynamo. Now, we're playing the ST version, but this appeared on multiple systems. So get this, the Brent. This came out in '92 on the Amiga and the Atari ST. Now, I've read that Amiga was the lead platform, but I mean they're very similar. But this also got released in '92 on the C64, the Spectrum, the Amstrad CPC, and DOS. I had just a glimpse because we're going to probably cover this one of these days on the ZX, but I had a look at it, and it's quite a different looking game on those machines. I mean, it's a much more attractive game. I will say they gave this the 16-bit treatment. But and then they had basically, I guess what they did was reverse it. They gave those the 8-bit treatment of a 16-bit game. So, that's what you get. This was published and developed by Codemasters, Brent. They've done a few things, including the Dizzies. They were heavily involved in those, and Micro Machines and some other stuff. Now, listen, get this to Brent. I looked up the people that worked on this. So this was programmed by a fellow named Derek Leigh Gilchrist. This guy worked on tons of the Dizzies. He worked on, but listen to this pedigree here. He also worked on the Tomb Raider for DOS, a bunch of the Tomb Raider games as they went up, got more popular. He worked on some of the 007 games on the Wii, the 360, the PS3. So this guy has had a career well after these older ST games. Same thing here with the graphics guy, which was one of the guys was Leigh Christian. He also worked on the Dizzies. He worked on the Yogi Bear game. He worked on FIFA Streets for the PS2 and the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the action game. So he's another guy who's worked all the way up to the PS2 era. The music on this was Matthew Simmons. This guy's done quite a few games, but just to name a few, the Dizzies, the Micro Machines for the Genesis. He was one of the guys that worked on the music for Agony on the Amiga, Chuck Rock, and he worked all the way up to the Rocket Knight games that aren't that old. The production on this, these guys that produced this for Codemasters have done so much stuff. I just wrote tons. Stuart Regan had over 100 game credits. Pat Stanley had over 35 game credits. The art manager, Shan Savage, has tons and tons of credits. I mean, these guys are like ultra, like seasoned, well-traveled guys. Now, this was near the beginnings of their career, but they even at that point, they already had some action and knew what they were doing. You could sort of tell when you played this game that it wasn't put together by a couple hacks. I mean, the right out of the gate, like you mentioned, the soundtrack kind of hits you, and it's you can tell as you begin to play this game graphically that these guys had a good hand. What did you think about this? What were your initial impressions when you fired this thing up to Brent?
Graphically, it's really good, really really good. They have a great color palette that they put to full use. Um, it has a lot of the polish. Some of the polish reminds me of gods, like the way the gems sparkle and I wouldn't call it a muted tone color palette, but it's definitely not bright and in your face, which works for the dynamics of the game, since you're in like this industrial type setting for most of the game. I thought it was really well done on the three platforms I looked on. It was the or not the ST, the ST and DOS and the Amiga, and they all look very similar.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Usually, your Amiga stands out graphically. That is not the case on this game. They look almost identical.
Yeah.
Screenshot wise, they are identical.
You could tell that they were done probably almost simultaneously, and probably using a lot of the same graphic. And I will say that one of the first things that stood out to me on the ST is that once again the ST has a reputation for not being particularly good at scrolling. But once again, we've played another game, much like when we played Stario's Christmas, like that sort of puts that to bed. This scrolls quite nicely. Mostly in a horizontal way, without really any issue whatsoever. I mean, I thought it was quite. I mean, and it's when I say scroll, I don't mean like it's a trick. I mean like it scrolls like screens and screens high without any difficulty, and does it with some pretty lush graphics. So just to jump into the backstory of this a little bit. So get this.
The backstory is the best part.
Yeah, insane genius Austin Van Flyswatter has stolen a huge collection of diamonds. And retrieving them requires navigating a succession of fiendishly designed arrangements of platforms and traps. So there's no other superheroes around that can do the job. There's only one guy, but he's retired. But he says, screw it, I'm going in. And that's Captain Dynamo. So you've got to go in and take care of business here. Now, you mentioned, and by the way, the backstory is like a paragraph. There's not a whole lot to it. But you mentioned that this was an industrial setting, and you're right. And apparently, the industry that this setting is made for is they manufacture spikes, because this game is rife with spikes, saw blades, and other accoutrements. There's tons of spikes in this factory. A lot of the setting of this, you're right. The tones were in like browns, coppers, reds. There's a lot of that, and grays, but it's not like a C64 style dirt graphics. These are no. They fit the mood. They're very they've shadowed them, and they've recessed some backgrounds to make it look like that there's depth to the game. Your character himself, Captain Dynamo, is sort of a tubby. He's sort of like, I'm trying to think what superhero I would compare him to. Brent, does anybody leap into your mind? Batman. Well, I mean, he's like if Batman had wore a metal helmet and was fat.
It's a cow and a cape.
Right. Well, I mean, the helmet to me looks metal because it's silver, and he's got looks like a chest plate, and he's got a red cape, and he's got sort of copper boots. One thing about your superhero is he doesn't have any actual. He doesn't have any offensive powers at all except to jump on a guy. So basically, he just basically sets on him, fat guy style. So I guess I can, if I was going to be a superhero for Chris or for Halloween, this would be a good choice. Kind of a tubby guy in a full mask. He is retired though, but so he does pretty well. This game has, I had to say, in all the games I've played on all the shows, this game has a jumping dynamic that I don't know if I've ever seen anywhere. We mentioned that this game has no physical attacks except for jumping on your enemy, so even your attack is a jump. This game has a jump where you just hit the button and jump. But like a lot of games on these platforms, if you hit the button and up, he'll jump significantly higher. I found
Yeah.
this out immediately on the first level when I couldn't get off the ground, and I was like, "What's happening here?" So this is one of the, one of the rare games that requires you to jump by hitting jump and hitting up.
Yeah.
What did you think about this? And the funny thing is, this is worked into the majority of the puzzles. Because sometimes you're definitely not going to want to jump high because you'll be killed, and so you have to quickly disseminate between jumping normally and jumping high with your up. I haven't seen. I was watching some people talk with this game, but I never saw anybody mention this. I couldn't figure out why it's such an important part of the game. What did you think about this jump dynamic, the Brent?
I didn't like it. Uh, long press has ruled the day for a lot of reasons and a lot of good reasons. Long press, short press for long jumps and short jumps is the norm. When you go outside that norm, it feels uncomfortable. I would have much rather just had a long press, short press.
Yeah. Oh well. I'll tell you. At first, I absolutely hated it, and there are times where you get confused when you hit the button. But I did appreciate. I like the idea of. Listen, I like any game that lets you hit the button to jump. All right, but have to hit up is sort of a drag. But I mean, there are absolutely puzzles that this setup made it easier to get past. Because this game has some puzzles that are built to kill. It's funny, the Atari ST and the Amiga versions actually have less levels than all the other versions. They only have 6 levels. 6 levels, Brent. Pretty
Yeah,
short. So
yeah,
what they lack in, and by the way, there's level warps as well. So like on the very first screen, I stumbled into a warp to level 3 the very first time I played it, and so right there, I'd already seen. I'd already worked more halfway through the game, and there's another level that goes to level. I think it's level 5. I know there's at least two warp secret areas in the game, but
yeah.
this game, what they lack in depth of levels, they make up for in punishment. They punish you in this game in a very Rick Dangerous style, like abuse of power. I guess would be the best way I could describe it. The game is dirty. This is one of those games that you can say that without any. That's exactly the way they wrote it. They wrote it to personally and purposely screw you and make you memorize every place you go. There are areas, in fact, on the very first level, there's that towards the end of the level. If you just try to jump, there's a spring. You jump on the spring, and everything above you that you couldn't conceivably see before you got on the spring is spikes, except for one little area. So it's built for you to die right there at least once. And there are tons and tons of areas like that in this game that are ridiculous. I mean, you talk about pinpoint jumping. There's a ton of it in this. What did you think about how, I mean, straight up dirty this game is? You can't deny that it's super dirty.
It is, and it's unfortunate because it doesn't need to be that. Well, it does because it's only 6 levels, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that a little bit later. The level design on this is crap, and that's really what ultimately makes the game unenjoyable. The controls, even with the up instead of a long press for higher jumps, you can live with that. You can learn, you can adapt. But the level design on this is made so that you're going to have to replay it over and over, and that's where it gets its replayability. That is not good. You don't. That's not how you put replayability into your game. And it's unfortunate because everything else in this is fun. It's enjoyable. Your main character is kind of dopey looking, but that's sort of the point. The springs and chain grabs, so you would go across like a pit or something. The floating platforms that sink down. It's all tried and true stuff, and it's done well. It's done fun. It's not complicated, and then they screw it up by having these blind jumps that uh, there's no enjoyment factor there, and this is too late in the day. 92 is too late in the day to still have those type of level design mentalities. You're past that. You should be past that by now, and it's unfortunate. it's unfortunate, is what it is, Aaron.
You know, listen, I'm gonna go so in a weird area here. You know, and I know I was thinking as I was playing this, thinking about how much Boat would have hated this game. I'm sure Boat was involved heavily in the selection of the game this week, and so, but this is a game. You know, a lot of games have these cheap areas. All right, a lot of them. But this game, not only does this game have them, it revels in them. They know, like, they don't make any excuses. They're screwing you. They're cheating. They know they are. They do it early and often. There are so many areas in this game that require you to do incredibly difficult jumps, pinpoint maneuvers, and some stuff that's just straight up timing. And they time stuff to screw you. Like, they want you to fail. Again, it's got a Rick Dangerous feel to it. And I will say, it was really angry. This is one of those games you go through the phases of gameplay. It's discovery, it's anger, and then it's acceptance. And then I went through a weird fourth phase where I started. Now, I'll admit this. I very quickly put on limited lives on this game. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be able to get past the second level. It would be impossible. But this is one of those games where you play a level over and over, and the difficulty becomes mundane eventually because you've played through the level so many times that you have memorized it. Like, I can tell you right now, I've memorized the first, second, and third levels of this game, and well into the fourth. That doesn't mean you're going to get through it every time, but you know what's coming, is my point. And this is the kind of game where they, like I said, they make stuff purposely incredibly difficult, and they don't give you they give you no advantages. I will say the control of Captain Dynamo, like he does look dopey, like you mentioned, but I never thought I was getting screwed. I played this quite a bit, and I felt the control. Once you mastered the jumping, at that point, it's just all about timing. There's a lot of timing in this game that you have to figure out to get past stuff. And I'll name a couple scenes that I thought were particularly vile. There's a scene in level 3 where you have to go under these two. You have to jump up on a platform that has two moving saw blades on it. And I mean, the ability to get up on this platform it's brutal just to get on it. And then you have to move across with these blades. I mean, it's unbelievably cruel. There's another level, I think it's level 4. This game, as you go through the level, you'll come across these areas that have like an S in them. And it's a save point, because otherwise you have to start the level over every time you die. So when you get to a save point, it basically, that's where you'll start when you die. They put the save point in a place that makes it so you have to go back around and through a super dangerous area just to get to the part where you saved. So they punish you for going to the save area. That's because they think that's funny, I think. These guys are a vicious bunch when it comes to putting these levels together. But, I mean, I almost have to admire them because they do so many shady things involving your leaping that it's actually sort of, I don't want to say endearing, but I mean, you feel like every time you advance, you really feel like you've accomplished something because you've died like 100 times. Can you look at it? Do you get any satisfaction from playing a game like this that's super hard and being able to master levels and go through them after playing them 100 times?
Here's the thing with level design, Aaron. Long ago, I read that good level design is like making a golf course. It's not about being too hard. It's about looking like it's too hard. And that's something that's always stuck with me with video game design. You want something that looks more challenging and thus will end up being more rewarding than it actually is, to make the player have that sense of accomplishment for getting through something. And this game goes the other route with it. We're not going to let the player feel good. We're going to let the player feel like he's been here before. And I hate that in games. I don't expect to get all the way through a game on one life, right? But I don't want to die just because I could not predict the future. To me, that is really bad level design. And it's obvious to me that the reason why they did that here was to artificially lengthen the game to make it feel like it's longer than it is. If I would have known when I was playing this, because I played through this, I spent my time with it, and then I thought, well, I need to go and see if this game offers any more in later levels. I made it to level 4, and I had no idea that level 6 was the end of the game. That is remarkably short for a scrolling platform game like this. And it's just for those listening, this does not scroll left or right at all. It only scrolls up and down. Uh, so it's always you're jumping off platforms or you're jumping off springs and you're being elevated to heights that you could not possibly see until you commit. And that is where it puts in all of its little gotcha traps, and it's unnecessary because there are segments of this game that give you that good feel. When you hit a spring and you spring up and you grab something and you slide across, that feels good because even if you jump on the spring and miss the handle to slide across the first time, you're not punished for it. You know what you need to do, and then you have to accomplish that task. When there are 3 springs and 2 of them spring you straight up into spikes and kill you, that is not good level design. That is just being cheap. And I actually enjoyed my time with this out despite all of the stupid platforming decisions, the blind jumps as they were, uh, and tried to enjoy this. But if the game didn't have that, I would have enjoyed it so much more.
We didn't mention that there are critters in the game. They're almost not worth mentioning. They're basically
Yeah,
an annoyance that you
yeah.
jump on, but they're there. They do respawn when you die. I think they even, if you go far enough off a level, I think they come back as well because I've fallen far enough to where they come back. They're basically just there to make it somewhere difficult for you to land, but they really don't play any, at least to the level. I did not beat the game. I did watch someone go through the last, I didn't get to level 6 at all. But I mean, it's funny because even with unlimited lives, like, I mean, you're, it's a brutally difficult game. But again, this is one of those. Go ahead.
It's not brutally difficult. It's cheap. Cheap does not
It's
equal
not
difficult.
Manic Miner brutally difficult, but it's tough. It's a tough game. But I mean, I'm not gonna. I like this game a lot actually, even though it's that hard because I like it's a well executed game. Like I like the look of it. I like the feel of it. Like you said, I mean they didn't have to go the cheap route, but I can. But again, if you're gonna go there, I don't mind them going all in. But what I'd like to have seen is like this team take this engine and graphic set and really have a go at it and try to make something that was less that because the one thing about making a game like this is you're going to limit your audience. Like I'll sit and play a game like this because maybe I do it for the show or maybe I just do it because I kind of like these games that punish you a little bit. But I mean, your average, your audience is not going to like there's not going to be, this is going to be like something like even like Super Frog or Zool or something where it's more approachable. Like this game, I mean, it's a game that you could die almost instantly right out of the gate without even knowing what the heck happened. It's a cruel game, but that limits its appeal. And these guys had the talent to, if not the time, maybe Brent, or maybe I mean they also released it some machines, so clearly this was a pretty major release. But this sort of was the style of the time. It's funny. One of our chatters, we like Brandon says it's the European Mega Man. I wouldn't go that far because the European designs is normally not this bad. I mean, in terms of like evil.
Oh
but
no,
I mean, occasionally it is
much worse.
Yeah, occasionally it will be.
Because the problem with the European design is all the crystals and gems you see, you have to collect to beat the level.
Yeah,
and that
or
would
you have to go
game,
looking for them. Yeah, you're going to get
that
lost
would
in
make
this
game
game.
Far more frustrating.
Yeah. You mentioned that it only scrolls up and down. There are areas where it doesn't scroll, but like as I mentioned, there are a few. I found at least 3 secret areas, 2 warps, and an area that you could go into like get just a bunch of gems, like a hidden room. But even
Yeah.
those feel tacked on to a certain degree because I mean, there's not that. I mean, I didn't find that many, and from what I read, there's not like tons of these things sitting around. So it's not like there's a ton of it because you get a secret bonus on your scoring, but I don't think there's a ton of secrets in here to find. I mean, I didn't find them, and I watched a bunch of other people who played just like I did, so I'm assuming there aren't a ton. But I mean, it's still something to give it a little bit of replayability. So at the end of the day, the Brent, I mean, a successful game that you enjoy or one you won't go back to.
It's a 6. A lot of me, I appreciate what they did graphically. I think they did a really good job graphically. And I super appreciate the sound. I thought the soundtrack to this was pretty banging. Uh, what I didn't appreciate was the level design, and I didn't appreciate that they didn't do nearly enough with the character. You never gain abilities. You never gain uh, even just like normal stuff that a game like this would have would be like a double jump or a grappling hook or anything, a dash, anything to make them a little less generic.
Yeah.
You're a superhero, and they never play into that
Well,
outside of the character
I
design.
I think what you're talking about that because that would happen in other games, and what you're talking about is a game where they advance the level to a point where getting these extra abilities would come into play, and this is not that kind of game. This guy. I mean, you once you've seen the first couple levels, you're not going to be stunned by what you see going further. You know,
That's
it's not
true.
like they break out any sorts of new enemies or new obstacles that you haven't seen before on a game like this. Um, when this game came out, it reviewed pretty well. Well, I would say it reviewed adequately. The people over at Atari or at Atari Mania have it as a 7.8. ST format had this listed as 76, which I believe this originally was on an ST format like a demo disc back in the day, and Atari ST User has this at 80%. So pretty decent scores. Well, they're not bad, for a game like this. I mean, I would say, in my opinion, that's 75 to 80%. I don't know. I may even have it a little bit higher than that if it's me. We did have a Discord review from Pajako. He types in, Rick Dangerous is apparently harsh with too much exploration by death. I love Rick Dangerous, he says. Captain Dynamo kicked Rick Dangerous in the goodie bag and said, hold my beer. One for the masochist, Captain Dynamo is not only punishing and incredibly tricky, requiring reflexes that are well and truly in my past. The sprite collision is over eager, and due to limited visibility, you will die a lot by jumping into things you couldn't see. My main issue with the game is the super jump up plus fire button combo. Surely the super jump could have been done without holding the fire button. I had to enable infinite lives. I'm only human, and completed about half the levels without skipping. That might sound impressive, but the game only has 6 main levels, so you can see why it's so brutal. You'd finish this way too fast otherwise. The box proclaims Captain Dynamo to be instantly addictive. It's spelled infuriating. And speaking of the box, did the cover artist ever play or see the game? Are there 2 Captain Dynamos? The ST version runs a lot faster and smoother than the floaty slow
He does.
motion Amiga build, and is the superior of the 2 builds. I didn't play the Amiga build, by the way. Did I
I
hate this
I played the
game?
Amiga. I played the Amiga, the ST, and the DOS version. And
Pajako continues here, and we'll get back to you, Brent.
I'm
Did I
sorry.
hate this game? Surprisingly, no. I did genuinely hurl my controller across the room at one point, but there is something about it that makes me want to kick its butt, so I picked that thing up and went back to it. Harsh, but a great example of a game that makes the ST shine with great graphics and a jaunty tune. 7 out of 10. Now, please continue, Brent.
Well, I mean, just as I said earlier in the episode, across the 3 platforms, Amiga, ST, and DOS, the ST does scroll better. Uh, it feels smoother, almost like there's more frames of animation. But the difference is so minute, so small, it's hardly even worth bringing up. It shows that at this time, at this stage in the game, those 3 platforms could absolutely all produce the enough power to run this game without any issue.
One thing I want to do that I didn't do, and I normally would do this right out of the gate, is hold this game's feet to the fire for one perpetual annoyance that I can't stand. You get no sound. It's sound effects, there's only music. I don't think there's even a way to turn off the sound. You don't get sound effects. I hate that. I hate that. Did I mention I hate that in 1992? That I can't have. Me and Boat just covered something on Amigos. It's the same thing. Like we know these machines were capable of having good music and sound effects, and this game is. It's. So, I'm not gonna say it's sparse, but I think they had enough room to stick in some sound effects here with the music. And now this game gets sort of a pass because the music's so good, but it's not a total pass. I want sound effects.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I
that's just
agree.
something that bothers me, the Brent. I looked this thing up on eBay. I've had a couple box copies just going for sale right now for around $50 US. They're
Oh,
over
no
in Europe,
way.
of course, but I don't know, $50 for an ST game of this quality. I might. You never know. I actually looked into buying it. I made an offer on a box, but this guy wouldn't. He wouldn't play ball. Some of these guys are nuts. They're always angling for the big money, and it always drives me nuts because they want so much cash. In fact, somebody even linked one of these up, and they were asking like an enormous sum of money for it. It was too much, but that's the way it goes. Everybody's working an angle, Brent. So to sum it all up, Brent, where does this thing go in your pantheon of ST platformers?
It's good. It left me wanting the designer to do more and to do better, and that's good. That's a good thing. That's why I can't kill the game just completely. It made me want for there to be more. Um, I didn't cheat. I didn't use infinite lives. I got to where I got to just by playing it over and over and over, and I feel fairly confident I could eventually beat this.
Oh,
Um,
I gotta see that.
I, I mean, I got to level 4 just playing it. So
I got
I
to
feel
level
pretty
3
confident.
just playing it, but that doesn't mean that it's hard. It's brutally
It
hard.
is. It's somewhat difficult.
And the thing
Uh,
is, there are
but
only a couple places in the game that give you like an extra man. There's like I saw at least one place. That's the only one I saw. So it's not like you're going to be peppered with extra lives. You know what I mean?
I could bully through this. I feel fairly
Oh
confident.
man, we may
Anyway,
this may be the new
the
Brent challenge for Boat Fest.
oh god, um, the the end result of me wanting more and me wishing the developers did better with the game means that the graphics were appealing, the character was appealing, the sound was appealing. They just didn't do enough with the tools they had, and that's a perfect sum up of this game.
I will say I'm going to agree with you for the most part. Now, one added bit that I also forgot to mention earlier is this game also commits the sin of having its name sprawled hugely on the screen at all times, a throwback to the 8-bit
Yes.
systems. However, I didn't. It didn't hinder me. So I
No.
mean, and I'm sure there was a performance reason they stuck it in there, but again, I guess it's just that's part of the era. You're gonna get that sort of thing. But overall,
Yeah.
I thought this was one of the more enjoyable ST games I've played for quite a while. I really enjoyed it, Brent. But as we move on, the Brent, I want to throw you the ball here so you can tell all of our ST listeners about what's been going on with our Patreon, Brent. Let's hear it.
Yeah, real quick. We had 4 Patreons before for the different shows: the ST Show, the ZX Spectrum, Arciclair, the Coco Show, and then ARG Presents. And when I took over for John on those 3 of those shows, the Patreons were still in his name, still ran off his bank record, still had his tax bracket stuff, and we wanted to pull all that away, and we weren't going to make 3 new Patreons. So what we did instead was made one Patreon to kind of cover all of that goodness, and we call it the retro rotation. All this is, it's just a Patreon trade change for the Sunday shows. We hope that you leave, if you were a Patreon before, we hope that you cancel out of those subscriptions and come and bring them to the retro rotation. That's all one word, patreon.com/the retro rotation. Join us up there. If you just want to support one game, we still make that very possible. As
Show.
a tiers under the retro rotation, you could just support the ST show. You can just support ARG Presents. Or if you want, you can say, hey, we like what you're doing on the Sunday shows and support an all-encompassing tier. That's an option. And we had to make some audio changes too. And Aaron, I think you've got the scoop on that.
Yeah, so we've always distributed our audio through Anchor, but through a wacky series of events, Spotify bought Anchor, and Spotify has made some very questionable choices with the way they run their network. But one of the things we're going to do is basically we've always had an ST show feed. We've had a different feed, audio feed for each of our shows. Plus, we've had the Amigos Retro Gaming feed, which has everything that we do. And so we're going to shut down the individual feeds and just run everything through the Amigos Retro Gaming feed. What does this mean to you, the listener, who is a podcast listener? It's simple. You just have to go over to the Amigos Retro Gaming feed and just pick out the shows you want and download them. This show will be there every month. This is the last show that we're going to be featuring on the Atari ST solo feed. That's going away, starting with the next ST show. Again, this was much like the thing with Patreon. We didn't have much of a choice here. That's just the way things go. And so, trust me, this is not helping us, except for, I guess we'll have one less feed to take care of. But so going forward, please change your podcatcher of choice to the Amigos Retro Gaming feed, where you will be able to see hear this show plus all of our other offerings all in one convenient feed, Brent.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to add, the Retro Rotation Patreon has been a tremendous success. We've had so many kind-hearted people make the transfer, and I really want to say thank you to those folks. Thank you to anyone who listens and supports us in any way they can. But a special thank you, because I know it's a hassle changing all that Patreon stuff around. But we've had a enormous shift. We thought what was going to take probably all year has happened in about a month. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And I also want to mention, in case it's not clear, the Retro Rotation shows is a totally separate entity from the Amigos. So if you're an Amigos listener, you don't have to change anything. Everything there is the same. Your Patreon over there is the same. This is strictly for, and we call these the Sunday shows because we tape these on Sundays. So that's why it's the Retro Rotation. When Brent says the Sunday shows, that's what he means. We'll be happy when all this crap's over. We've made this announcement a few times by now, and some of you are probably
one more time to go.
Yeah. So you're probably one of the advantages, Brent, of becoming a Patreon. Of course, you get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord, which is a great Discord, along with all ourselves and the Amigos and Sprite Castle with Rob Fleck O'Hara and Pixel Gaiden with the Pixel Gaiden crew. They're all part of our Discord. We're a big, happy retro family over there, Brent. But one thing you get when you join up to the Discord is you get to become a member of our game selection committee. And these are the people that choose the games that we're going to play, including they chose Captain Dynamo. Now, I'm going to hit the button here to see what we're playing next month, I should say. And we don't know. The game selection committee has not chosen our next game, so we'll probably find out in the next couple weeks. But we hope you guys will all come back for the next edition of the Atari ST Show. Now, next week, Brent, we're going to be back on our Sunday morning time slot as always, and we're going to be covering ARG Presents next week, Brent. Do you remember what was chosen as our ARG Presents subject for next week?
It was a chat choice special, Aaron.
It was Games of Llamasoft, Jeff Minter's creative outlet there. So we're going to be doing 2 Jeff Minter games next week. That should be a lot of fun, Brent, because aside from the fact that Minter is involved, We don't have to have any. We can play on any system that he's been around forever. So who knows what we're going to end up getting into? But that'll be next week's subject matter. To be the games of Jeff Minter and Llamasoft. Brent, any final thoughts before we take this thing to the house?
Nope.
Very good. All right, everybody. Have a safe and fruitful week, and we'll catch you for next week's ARG Presents. Thank you very much. And remember, have you played
your ST today?
Close enough. Adios, everyone.